Voidmage Gamer is now partnered with Flipside Gaming, so you can use the promo code on their website, all caps Voidmage, to get 10% off all orders $10 or more. It's a great way that you can support both Flipside Gaming and Voidmage Gamer's channel. Also, until October 7th, all orders that use the promo code will be automatically entered to win a booster box of Guilds of Ravnica. Entries are limited one per person just to keep things fair, so be sure to check that out. Hello guys, welcome back to another Commander Top 10 video. This time we have a ton of cards to go over from the brand new set Guilds of Ravnica coming out early October. This set is just oozing with Commander awesomeness. Very difficult to do this top 10 because there's so many good cards to choose from. We're going to start it off like we do with all the other top 10s. Honorable mentions. We're going to go for the obvious reprints here. The Shocklands are just amazing. We're only going to get 5 of them for this set. We're probably going to get the other 5 in the following set. They're targets for fetch lands. Chromatic Lantern is probably the best reprint in this entire set. Definitely needed one, and it does make sense it was from Return to Ravnica. Perfect for that mana fixing though. And then we have the card Chance for Glory. Sort of the most interesting thing that Boros had to offer in this set in my opinion. I think Boros has this identity of combat specialists, which, I mean, it fits the guild. That's what they're all about, combat. But there's nothing really inspiring about the guild other than just good combat, good keywords. So not surprised to see more of the same when it comes to legendary creatures, commander options. Chance for Glory just seems like a risk it for the biscuit kind of card. And that's probably the main reason why it deserves an honorable mention. And then we have Knight of Autumn, basically another Reclamation Sage with some other options. I was going to put it on the top 10 until I realized that it is in 2 colors and the other options that you get aren't that spectacular. A really good card for limited, no doubt about that, but in Commander I just don't really see it as being played widely as Reclamation Sage. I think in the same exact decks you're going to be playing Reclamation Sage. This is just more of the same. Now we move on to the actual top 10 here. Number 10 is Underrealm Lich. This is basically the Golgari version of Tomorrow Azami's Familiar, so it just works with the graveyard. A little bit better though because you can just make him indestructible, so he's a lot more likely to stay out there than Tomorrow is. Nothing too special outside of that though. And number 9 we have the new Niv Mizzet. Probably a favorite of mine already, just to build around, more so than the previous Niv Mizzets, especially the Firemind. There's a lot more cheap combos, I would say, associated with that guy. This Niv Mizzet, I think, is a little bit more balanced, but still capable of being extremely powerful. You can fill your deck with nothing but instants and sorceries, and you're probably going to do that anyway, but this also counts your opponent's instants and sorceries, so you get to draw cards off of those too, deal damage off of those. Very interesting, a little bit lower on the list because it doesn't really take Niv Mizzet in a different direction other than just drawing cards and pinging players, which is pretty much what he did in his previous 2 incarnations. Number 8 is Midnight Reaper. This is basically like a combination of Grim Haruspex and Dark Prophecy. A little bit worse than Grim Haruspex, but still I think in just as many decks you are probably going to want to play this too. Dark Prophecy, after all, is one of the more underrated cards. Doesn't see as much play as something like a Phyrexian Arena or a Necropotence for that matter, but can give you some scary advantage if your opponents aren't careful. The downside of losing life or having to take 1 damage isn't that big of a deal as long as you're careful and you can manage your own creature count. I think it works out pretty well. Probably my pick for sleepers of this set that maybe some people might overlook. Number 7 is the only Planeswalker on this list, Vraska Golgari Queen. The only reason why I will put a Planeswalker on my top 10s is if I honestly think that they're all around good with their abilities. Her plus, you do have to sacrifice a permanent, but you get card draw. Her minus is basically Abrupt Decay, so you have some good removal on a minus, which is what you're looking for. And her alt is a crazy win con that we haven't really seen before. Previous Vraska from Return to Ravnica was kind of like this, but a lot worse because it wasn't just any creature, it was the assassin creatures that you created. So the fact that it can be any creature dealing combat damage to force your opponents to lose the game, that is just crazy. Golgari decks, Atraxa decks, doesn't really seem to matter. I think she's going to see play in many decks in the format. Number 6 is Azoni Thousand-Eyed. She's pretty cool. Golgari may not venture outside its comfort zone with this set, but you are going to be getting more of the same, which is very strong engines and some sort sort of affinity for the graveyard. You're basically getting tokens for each creature in your graveyard. Gonna kind of behave in a way like an Avenger of Zendikar for green decks. You want to get a lot of bodies out there. I would love pairing her up with something like a Mazarek Krau Death Priest, so you get all those tokens out there, and you can give them a ton of +1/+1 counters. She also has her ability, which is going to sacrifice them. You get to draw a card for just 2 mana. Very underrated, but again, Golgari's all about that value engine, and I think she's probably going to be one of the more underrated commander options coming from this set. Number 5, we have Lozad the Multifarious. Probably the most interesting commander in this entire set. Maybe the only one that kind of doesn't do something that we're used to seeing in Dimir, because Dimir is usually all about milling. This time it's more about your own graveyard. Kind of like Marcel the Pretender. Maybe not as versatile, but you do have some really cheap ways of winning with this guy that are kind of hilarious. You can easily win with Infect, but there are also strategies, there's also combos that are already made to get infinite +1/+1 counters on him. You can then remove for something like a Triskelion, win the game that way. You also have Sage of Hours. A lot of cool combos. Of course, a lot of these are going to involve Necrotic Ooze, but just a 2-mana commander, you can get him out there early and often. Pretty cool. Number 4, we have the ThousandYear Storm. This card is insane. Can you say Mizzix? Anything that's going to enable you to cast a ton of instants and sorceries is just going to be outrageous with this card, especially when you start talking about cantrips, something like Ataxian Probe, things that you can cast easily, and then imagine being able to copy them for each previous casting of an instant or sorcery this turn. That is just disgusting. And in Commander, cards like these shine, because we already have a ton of cards available to us like Ponder, Preordain. Just keep building up that storm count for instants and sorceries, which is basically what this card is. And all you really need to do at that point is just cast some sort of instant or sorcery, like a win con, any sort of burn spell. I think that's just insane. Number 3 is Divine Visitation. So whenever a token creature is going to come into play under your control, you can basically just have it come into play as a 4/4 flying angel. The cool thing about this is that there are so many commander options that just get you tokens in white. Doesn't necessarily have to be mass token production. Something like Teysa Orzhov Scion that rewards you with 1/1 spirits is instead going to get you 4/4 angels. And you could of course just go with something simple like Risk the Redeemed, something that's going to double your token count, get you even more of those 4/4s. This card is just crazy. Paired up with Parallel Lives or Anointed Procession, things that are already available to us that are going to make our token count even crazier. And there's also a ton of support in this set for tokens when it comes to Celestia. Number 2, we have what is arguably the best card in this set if you consider all formats. Assassin's Trophy, I think, is going to be just as good in other formats, but especially in casual EDH where you don't necessarily care about giving your opponent a land if it means you get to get rid of some crazy land like a Gaia's Cradle or their Planeswalker or any good permanent that they have for 2 mana. This is arguably a better Abrupt Decay. I think once you go into more competitive EDH, then you start caring about giving them a land. Super cheap, super effective, and usually cards like these see play across the format and just about every single deck that's playing these colors, kind of like Anguished Unmaking. And then we have number 1, which is just insane. Probably the best card for Commander from this entire set. Maybe not as explosive, maybe not as valuable in other formats, which is the main reason why it's number 1 here. Mnemonic Betrayal. If you love Yawgmoth's Will, this card is basically Yawgmoth's Will times 3. It has the downside of you not being able to work with your own graveyard, but all of your opponent's graveyards are going to be exiled. You get to cast anything using mana as if it were mana of any color. Super flexible. Just an overall hilarious card. I think while it may not be powerful for some decks that want Yawgmoth's Will, there's no doubt in my mind being able to cast anything from your opponent's graveyards and doing something like this mid to late game is usually going to win you the game. I can't imagine something like this not doing that. Just overall here, the power is undeniable. Probably the best blue-black card from this entire set. The most interesting one to me at least. But anyway guys, that's going to do it for this top 10 list of the best cards for Commander from Guilds of Ravnica. Let me know what you think about it. I think these cards are all great. I think there's a ton more. Let me know what cards you think I missed. You guys have a wonderful day. Void here signing off. See you all next video.